you'll see a lot of my content is about business growth, scaling, how to do things, how not to do things. But my primary focus and my niche, my specialisation, as it were, is obviously property investment and property development. It's what I've done for 20 years. It's what I have the most knowledge on. So some of this content will be very much focused on that. And it's a big sector in the world as well. So a lot of people interested in that and wanting to learn more. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to talk about property investment, which I think is very, very different compared to property development. Now, you can say both are a type of investment, which they are, but property development is much more active. Investment, as a rule of thumb, is less active. So when we talk about property investment, we're mainly talking about putting a deal together, exiting a deal. There can be a bit of construction or refurb element in the middle, but for me, I always like to separate property investment from property development because they're two different things in my head. The main things we need to think about when you're thinking about your property investment journey, whether you're a beginner or even advanced, is the key elements that you need to understand and need to have clarity on for yourself. First of all being, how much capital do you have to deploy? How much cash you've got in your pocket? What sort of risks you want to take or are willing to take. Obviously, the higher risk have the higher returns, but especially as a beginner, this isn't the way to go. Or sometimes actually is. You know, if you haven't got much capital, then you need to take higher risk, and you need to come from a place where that risk you can live with. So risk, return on what you want and over a period of time. A lot of people will give you percentage returns. Oh, this is making 20% profit. But it doesn't matter if it's making 20% profit if it's over 10 years. 2% a year is nothing. That's not even inflation beating. So we need to understand the return over what period of time. And I always break that down then to an annual return. And then you have to think about the cash deployed. So your next metric would be return on cash rather than return on the deal. So obviously you can leverage and use lending, which we'll go into later. So how active you want to be is also a key metric. Do you want to be heavily involved in every aspect? Do you have that amount of time free, or are you very much have a full-time job, you're doing this on the side, or you have another career or another business? So they're the key factors you need to understand first in yourself before you set off on your investment journey. So we'll talk about risk first, because I think that's the most important. So you've got low risk and high risk. The higher you go up there, usually the higher the returns, but obviously with a higher risk, you've got more chance of losing everything. And then if you use three key elements on your risk analysis, which would be capital, time invested, risk you're willing to take. So we've got how much time you're willing to spend, how much capital you're willing to invest, how much risk you're willing to take. Out of those three, if you want to be low, i.e. I don't want to put much cash in, I don't want to put much time in, I want low risk, that doesn't exist. Stop kidding yourself. You can only have two in a low position. So if you want low risk, low capital investment, you're going to be spending a shitload of time, of your own time, invested in the deal. You can't have all three as low. So pick which ones are most important to you. And actually, when I say pick, a lot of these are going to be, you have no choice. If you ain't getting no cash in the bank, then you ain't got to be able to put a load of capital in, are you? So some of it's a choice, some of it's a victim of circumstance. So you choose which one you want to go. Some of you will be in a much better position capital-wise. Some of you will be in a much better position time-wise, which I will go on later episodes where I talk about time being our rarest commodity, much rarer than cash. So pick those. So we'll look at a couple of deals that I've done and three different types of deals where they've got different key metrics on that tripod, as it were. Capital, time, risk. So if we look at something, if we want something that's low risk in property, this is property investment. So if you're looking at something that's low risk and you want low amount of time invested, then you're going to be high capital. So a really good example of this is going to be investing in a commercial building in the centre of London. Prime area, so you've got very low risk. A building that's occupied by a blue chip company, so could be occupied by Barclays Bank or a massive global company that are obviously going to be paying their rent. They're in there on a 20-year lease. This is very, very, very low. This is the lowest risk you can possibly get. You're in a very prime area. We've got a fantastic tenant that's on a 20-year, 30-year, 40-year lease that's a multi-billion-dollar global enterprise, so you're not going to have any problem collecting rent. They're on an FRI lease, which means a fully repairing and insuring lease. So they look after all of the repairs, they insure the building, they look after everything. It's completely hands-off, so we've got zero next to zero time involved in managing this. You've got a bit of asset management because you need to check they're doing the work. You need to make sure the rent's coming in, obviously. So there's a slight bit of active involvement, but the lowest you could possibly get. So this type of investment is the closest thing to passive you can possibly get. Don't be tricked by all of these glamorous, oh, it's so passive, oh, you can do this. Nothing is 100% passive. The closest thing you can get to passive investment is what I've just talked about there. Prime, commercial, hands-off, FRI lease. That is the least amount of involvement that you could possibly get, but there's still going to be some involvement. So that's the closest to passive you can get. But what you need to do that, to invest in something that's completely low risk and your best case of passive that you can possibly achieve, you need a shit ton of capital. That building's a building like that occupied by a Barclays or whoever in the centre of London is going to be hundreds of millions of pounds. So yes, you can use lending. Lending on a commercial asset like that, you're looking at 60 to 65% LTV if you're lucky, and you need a massive track record and a massive balance sheet to achieve that. So you're going to need a significant amount of cash. And that's why we talk about this tripod effect of the three key factors. To have the low risk, which this is, the low time involvement, which this is, the most passive, you're going to need a shit ton of capital. You can't have all three. So we'll go to a medium scale. So a medium scale might be something like, let's say something I've got, which is a car park in Bradford. So a car park, you'll think hands off, there's not much involvement in a car park. However, it's Bradford. So the car parking income is much less. You know, you might be paying £1 an hour, whereas in London you're paying £8 an hour. You know, significantly less income. And you've also got the risk there of people not paying, of suddenly people not driving. In the city centre, it's got less of obviously there are no tourists, there's less visitors into the city, so you're mainly looking after the occupants within the city. And then you've also got free parking areas because it's a secondary city. So it's a medium risk. It's very passive, but it's going to be medium risk because there is a risk there. It's not like the building in London where you've got your guaranteed income. This is not guaranteed. It's going to take some involvement. So that's going to be medium risk, medium amount of capital, because of the medium risk, you're going to get less lending, but you're going to get more lending than a commercial asset. It's just the way it goes in terms of offices. So you'll be able to leverage through banks or through private investment, and so you'll still need some capital, but it'll be on the medium scale, and then you've got low involvement. So you've got out of the three things, you've got medium risk, medium capital, but you've got low involvement. A car park doesn't really need much of your time. It's a parking machine, it's a gate, it needs maintenance every now and again. It's going to be quite less time consuming. And then your highest risk, highest reward, for instance, could be something like shares in a company that owns a data center or is going to develop a data center. So usually when you're talking about the passiveness and risk as well, developing is usually one of the highest risks, which is why it's also one of the most expensive to get lending against. So higher risk, higher reward, but you've got to know what you're doing. So it might be a data center, you're getting offered shares. Oh my God, you're going to need, I only need £1,000. You can have shares in this company. It's going to build a data center. Yeah, we don't know who's going to occupy it. Yeah, we don't know who's going to sell it. I'm only giving you shares, but we're going to be leveraging lending. So you've got no security on the land. You've got absolutely no security, just a whim and a hope. That's high risk, but what you've got is low capital, low involvement because you're investing in shares, but it's a very high risk. Something I wouldn't personally do, but each to their own. People want to, for the sake of, if they've got some cash, they want to invest something in something low or diversify their portfolio, which is a bit higher risk, then you can do it. So what I'm also going to talk about is something that's actually quite recent for me, actually. Only yesterday I posted on socials about my asset team in my investment company uncovering some historical debt that has been hidden from us. I won't go into the full story, but unfortunately we've had a previous member of the team who's no longer with us who was able to circumvent some of our systems and hide debts on some of our properties. As a business leader, you need to obviously be able to trust your people. You need to give them trust, but also not be deluded. You need to validate. So when someone's given me a report, and this is something I failed on here, so usually I'm quite good at this, but my priority was elsewhere in the businesses. The report was coming from our systems, so I thought it was already validated. That was another lesson. Even after 20 years, I'm still learning these lessons, which I know about as well, which is actually even more frustrating. But this is something I want to talk about, the trust but validate saying. You need to put people in place that you trust, but you also need to make sure that you understand that it is your responsibility. I, as a leader of the business, cannot go to my stakeholders, cannot go to my bank who have got mortgage payments and say, oh, well, this person manipulated a report. They don't give a shit. No one cares. It's on you. So you've got to take responsibility. You cannot just sit back, no matter how good your business is going, how big it's getting. You cannot sit back and just trust. Trust has to come with validate. So that's why you have to get involved. You have to put in auditing processes, but also yourself pick things out. So it's something I've always done, but I've not done good enough this time, where I'll pick certain things out to audit myself. I'll make sure processes are being followed. I'll make sure I'll do an audit myself correctly, or I'll even be auditing the audit, which sometimes you have to do as well. So this is a key lesson. Please do not take your eye off the ball, which is something, like I said, I've done in the past 24 hours that's been uncovered. Trust but validate. And then that goes on to further when we're talking about as you're raising finance, as you're working with people on joint ventures, it's really important that you think you know that people and you think you're good at trusting people, but you have to validate, no matter who you meet, no matter how impressive they are. If you're going to do business with somebody, you have to look at track record, and also be mindful that they're looking at your track record. Track record is everything in this business, in any business, but especially in property. As business leaders, we do not take the eye off the ball. We're always checking, we're always looking at track record. Whoever you work with, track record is everything. And also be mindful of that yourself. Your track record is your playbook. When somebody's looking at you, they are looking at what you have done before. So there's certain decisions you have to make throughout your career that might not be the best for you. They might not be decisions you want to make, but you have to make them for the good of your track record, for your reputation. And don't get me wrong, there will be mistakes made. I've made some mistakes where it's affected my own reputation and my own track record. You have to try after that to then make it right. So trust but validate. Get your own track record sorted. Check the people's track record you are working with. This all day. I'm going to focus on bits of construction element. So what we're going to talk about first is, I think, something key that a lot of people don't understand, even seasoned pros don't really understand, is the difference between design drawings to get your planning permission, your design permit, whatever that may be around the world. They have different terminology, but let's stick to the UK where it's planning permission. Your planning drawings are something completely different to your construction drawings. Planning drawings aren't worth the paper they're written on when it comes to actually building the thing. So we talk a lot about buildability. Construction design is the most important bit. Now, yes, you want your building to look right. Yes, you need it to work for feasibility. Yes, you need to make sure that your profit margins are correct. But you also have to make sure that you can build the fucker. It's all well and good looking great. You've got a lovely CGI. This tower looks brilliant. This commercial office looks brilliant. Look at it. Look how it's going to look. Look at the furnitures. No one gives a shit when it comes to construction. You need to be able to build the fucker. So what you have to do as a professional developer, yes, you can employ people, but again, going back to that age-old adage, trust but validate, you need to know your stuff. Construction design is what tells you what you can build and how much it's going to cost. So you need to very early on understand how it's going to be built. So this will be construction design is going to be things like detail drawings. That's going to be showing you how all of your junctions come together on your steel frame, or how your woodwork comes together, what your foundation design is going to be, what equipment you need from an MEP perspective to make sure the building can run, can be ventilated, can be heated, you have water. All of those things need to be considered, and there are thousands and thousands of variables where things cross paths when you're in your building that need to be coordinated. Now, yes, you need a fantastic design team to do that. Again, with track record, make sure that when you're sending out your design packages for tender, they are responding with a clear track record and references. This is on you from not from just a business perspective, but also a health and safety perspective, because don't think because you're the developer and owner and you're employing designers and you're employing main contractors that, the responsibility is no longer mine. Tell that to a courtroom if someone dies in your building, because the courts don't give a shit that you delegated it to somebody else. You are the owner, you are ultimately responsible. So we talk a lot about responsibility as well. Don't turn away from responsibility. It's a good thing. I like it. We've got nowhere else to turn, so I like taking the responsibility. Yes, again, delegate, but always check. So on your construction design, when you're designing something, always be mindful, even early doors when you're just doing some feasibility sketches,